Just want to do just a little more review of some, not all, of last week's assignments. This is one of the quizzes I gave you, which was simply, given a certain argument, answering certain questions about it. But so whenever you're faced with this sort of task, you can take a quick look at the questions, but really the best thing to do is just at some point you have to read the argument, make sure you have a sense of it. Football fans are more likely to commit violent acts than basketball fans. The reason for this is simple. Okay, so there's a clear inference indicator. And the reason for this, and this being the first statement here, it shows you that at least what follows this inference indicator, the reason for this is simple, will support the initial statement that football fans are more likely to commit violent acts than basketball fans. So in a short argument, it may be that this is simply an intermediate conclusion and not the final conclusion of the argument, certainly. But it will be a conclusion. So when we're trying to make the logical structure of the whole thing explicit, certainly this will be a conclusion, if not the conclusion of the argument. The reason for this is simple. Football attracts more violent people than basketball does, and football encourages violent behavior while basketball does not. Because of the greater likelihood of football fans to commit violent acts, you are fully justified in feeling more nervous around someone wearing an NFL team jersey than one wearing one from the NBA. Well, that does show us, that last part, that this is not the final conclusion. This is an intermediate conclusion to the argument. The final conclusion is you are fully justified in feeling more nervous around someone wearing an NFL team jersey than wearing one from the NBA. So this is the final conclusion to the argument. This tells us, this is kind of like recapping this, because of the greater likelihood of football fans to commit violent acts. This is sort of restating what was argued for earlier. In fact, it really restates the initial claim, which is supported by the second statement here. Okay, so when we come to ask questions, we should do that. I mean, really, I think just naturally at a certain point in a class like this, looking at an argument, getting a sense right away of what its final conclusion is and what the argumentation is or the reasoning is that supports it. So what is the overall conclusion to this argument? It's actually this: you are justified, et cetera, et cetera. It's not the first statement. That turns out to be an intermediate conclusion. What are the basic premises of this argument? Well, remember, basic premises are premises for which no argument is offered. I would say, the basic premises are here. Football attracts more violent people than basketball does. That's a basic premise for which no argument is offered whatsoever. And football encourages violent behavior while basketball does not. Those things are just laid out there with no support whatsoever. Those are meant to support this. So this is not a basic premise. Probably not. I don't want to get into a distinction between reasons and causes here, but I think for the sake of this, we can say that this first statement is meant to be supported by these two here. So the basic premises, the completely unsupported premises, are these two here: that football attracts more violent people than basketball does. That's number one. And football encourages violent behavior while basketball does not. Those are basic premises. That is, premises for which no, that's what basic means here. Basic premise, a premise for which no argument is offered. It's a pure assumption. What is the intermediate conclusion in this argument? Well, once we've identified this as the final conclusion, then it becomes clear that this is an intermediate one.